very difficult to identify those people.
Thank you.
Have been addressed by these new regulations. Okay, there's lots of people buying and selling animals, but the business of trading in animals and selling in animals, in respect of being a licensed pet shop, have been tightened up at these regulations. So what I'm saying is we will be looking at the sale of animals more over the internet. I'm sorry if I've not made that very clear.
Which will include the domestic ones?
Absolutely, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Councillor Morrall.
Thank you. I welcome the legislation. It kind of goes in the face of the cliche at the moment that Conservatives don't care about animal welfare. What I will say, though, is the licensing fees, which you've already pointed out, seem extortionate. And I think if anybody gets into the animal business, be it a pet shop, and the one that really jumps out at me are dog daycare centres and kennels. Anybody who wants to start up that sort of business, clearly, you would assume, has a love for animals in order to want to take the risk to set up that sort of business. Are we not, what economists call unintended consequences here? By raising the licence fee, you are creating a disincentive for people to want to, or making it harder for them to set up these sorts of centres, which would actually benefit animals in the long run.
Thank you, Councillor. It is very, very difficult. I was asked to look at the amount of time it takes to process a licence application. A lot of these premises also need a veterinary inspection, which I have to arrange, and then I also go out with the vet. The emphasis on the guidance that we have is that fees must be on a full cost recovery basis. I'm not sure that we are even covering the costs with those fees.
Chris, you wanted to come in on that point.
Chair, yes, if I may just expand on what Vicky was just saying, actually, that we are expected under the regulations to achieve cost recovery. So these fees have been calculated more precisely than perhaps they were previously, I suspect, to be a true reflection of the number of hours that the process of administering a licence application takes, and also to take into account the inspection of premises as well, and any subsequent enforcement that might arise as a consequence. So they've been calculated in the way in which we would calculate a fee for a taxi licence, or what would be a taxi licence effectively. The same principles have been applied to ensure that the council isn't underwriting the cost for businesses, basically, which would be the case otherwise.
You want to come back?
Yeah, let's come back on that. So let's say you go and find a pet shop and there's, I don't know, they're doing something wrong in the background, breeding loads of animals that are obviously not fit for pet, or something that breaches the legislation. Surely you should put a fine on that individual business and then recuperate the cost from their profits, rather than affecting the whole industry by just putting a blanket licence fee on everyone.
So, Chair, through you, I mean, in that scenario, if we prosecuted a business that was unlicensed, the local authority wouldn't receive any income from that. So the fine would go to the Treasury. All we would recover would be the legal costs, but it would be recovering. So if it cost us £1,000, we might get £1,000 back. So there's no way in which that prosecution would result in income coming to the council that would make up for the fact that the business didn't have a licence in the first place.
Right. Chris, Councillor Beecham.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know whether this is going in the right direction. It would be like prohibition, almost, that it goes underground, and instead of speakeasies coming up, it's breatheasies that are coming up. And I've had more, probably in the last 18 months, of casework from these sort of places that are basically within a home, and people are doing the breeding, and it's driving a lot of them into that lower end by virtue of really upping the ante with the regulations. And I wonder whether this is being taken into consideration. We've got a doctor in Erdington, Lady Doctor, who bought a cat for £300, and I think it lasted 8 days, and it was terrible, in terrible condition. We have little old ladies who up to their knees in cats within houses, and selling or that sort of thing. And as somebody who has no pets, path for a few fish in a pond, it does seem peculiar that they can get away with doing this breeding, and they do. You see the dogs being walked in the street, and all the time they seem to be pregnant, and it's going underground big time, and I don't know whether we're approaching it from the right angle.
We are expected to recover our costs, you know, on these licences. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. I personally welcome the report. I think that, especially when it comes to dog breeders and licensing, I think reducing the litters to 3 instead of 5, as somebody that's grown up in a family with lots of dogs and has just bought her first pet puppy waiting for it to come home, I think that having more of these dog breeders licensed would encourage more people to go to the people that are actually licensed instead of going to just like domestic breeders at home that aren't licensed. Also on the cost of the regulatory fees, I would say I would be in support of them. I think animal welfare is paramount. I think that we need to be having a look and properly regulating things, and I don't think jumping into a business of dog breeding, pet shop licence is something that people should be taking lightly, and there should be at a cost so that we as a city council can make sure that's being done properly. I think animal welfare is a lot more paramount than people making profit. Thank you, Chair.
And do you want to make a comment back?
Chair, the only thing I wanted to point out, of course, that if premises are of a good standard, this licence fee could possibly last for 3 years. That's new. So that in effect, a lot of them could be actually paying a lot less for their licences.
Right. Is there any... Councillor Armstrong.
Just an observation. I think sometimes this is all about perspective. My perspective, I very much welcome this. My perspective would be that actually looking at the fees that they were too low before. So it's to my perspective, it doesn't seem that for a business that's going to be relatively highly profitable, we're not now looking to charge them a lot. Potentially, we just weren't charging enough before. And if you have to recoup costs, you have to recoup costs. It has to come from somewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Any more comment? Councillor Morrall.
Just want to clarify, just to come back on those 2 points, businesses have to make profits. That's how they reinvest it into the franchise, it's how they pay for themselves, it's how they keep the business running, and that is a good thing, because if the businesses weren't making a profit, these animals, especially the kennels, which really jumps out to me, you'd have stray dogs walking the street, and that's, you know, as for the costs, these are going to be small to medium enterprises, which make up 99.9% of all business. You know, the backbone of the British economy. £340.50 is a lot of money for a small business. And again, they're not going to be in it just for profit. You know, these are small businesses we're talking about, and I think it's going to have disproportionate effects. So to clarify that point, you said it was 3 years, and does that mean the current licence is 1 year? Okay.
Your speaker on, Vicky.
Sorry.
Could you turn your speaker off, Councillor Morrall?
Normally I'm quite loud, actually, but yeah, we have a potential to issue a licence for a maximum of 3 years. Okay, good standards, higher animal welfare standards, they will get a 3-year licence. I must point out, though, because I think it'd be unfair for me to do so, that a first licence under the regulations will only be for 12 months, will only be for 1 year, because we've got no compliance history. So I wouldn't want to mislead you by saying that a new licence, because the new licence fee is higher, I appreciate.
But after that first year, then we would be compliant.
Well, if they've been compliant and they've been really good, then absolutely, we've had no complaints and they're a high standard, then they could go to a 2 or a 3 year licence, yes, Chair.
That needs to be said as well. Right, thank you. Councillor Morrall, you want to...
Just one final comment, yeah, and just to conclude everything else that I've said, to echo Beecham's great point on prohibition. This is no different to the war on drugs or, you know, prostitution. When you make something illegal, what you do is you drive it underground into the black market. So you'll actually make dog breeding and the rest worse if we're not helping businesses to do it legally and properly.
Thought your government was trying to outlaw puppy farms. I don't usually make political statements. Right. Any more questions? Any more points of clarification? No? Right. So, let me get the page right. The recommendations are that in 2.1 that the proposed new fees in the appendix are approved and the report be noted. All those in favour, please show. Right. Five foot. Was it 5 or yeah? 4, 5, 6. 6. Yeah, 6. And those against? Those abstentions? Right. Thank you. Two abstentions. Thank you for that, colleagues. Thanks for the debate. The next item on the agenda is item number 11, and that's penalty point system for licensed drivers and vehicle proprietors.